Hello, everyone. This is RG at Astig Vegan. Welcome, welcome. I'm so excited to do a cook along with my good friend. Her name is Erika Galera, and she is from Food Empowerment Project, which is a vegan social justice organization based in the US. And together we will be cooking, well, virtually, since we still have the pandemic, so we're doing this safely but still together during via Zoom, and we will be cooking something that is vegan and Filipino, and something to celebrate or to commemorate the Filipino American History Month, which is October. And without further ado, my good friend Erika Galera. Hi, Erika.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to get cooking. This is the first time I've ever done anything like this, so a little nervous, but I'm excited to try this soup that I've never had before, which is very surprising. I'm so used to, my dad would always cook when I was younger at Nilaga. It was like all the time. So this is a new soup, but I'm excited. It sounds delicious.
Yes. So, and this soup that we will be making is called sopas, and I'm surprised and excited at the same time that you haven't tried this before. This is also the first time that Erica will be doing something on cam, right? You're usually behind the scenes. Is that
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. I'm sometimes in front of the camera, but it's rare because I don't like to be. But this is great.
Oh, thank you for letting me invite you and for joining. And this is really cool. You're doing great so far. You don't look nervous at all. I think you're gonna
You.
be great. Yes, and we are both vegans, and we are gonna do something that is vegan Filipino. As Erica was what you're saying. You grew up sort of influenced as well by Filipino food, right? With Nilaga from your dad. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so my dad did a lot of the cooking in the household. So it was very, heavily meat based. So it was always like adobo, chicken adobo, pork adobo. We'd have nilaga, like I said, which was my absolute favorite growing up, which I just seen on your website that you have a nilaga recipe. So I'm gonna have to try that. But yeah, it's funny because growing up, it's in a family that is so focused on meat.
Mhm.
It was definitely hard when I was younger to step away from that and find more vegetable based foods. Um, when I was younger, kind of just going back into it, I was always like a big animal lover, and so I knew I wanted to be like a vegetarian or something, but because my family was not able to find the ways to like make stuff that is vegetarian or vegan, I had to go with what they were making. But
Wow, how
now,
old were you when you had that inclination?
I remember my mom telling me that it was probably between like 5 and 7 years old when I was just like,
Oh.
I love animals, I don't want to hurt them, that kind of thing. But I have no memory of that whatsoever. My mom, now that I'm vegan, she's like, oh yeah, you've always loved animals and you used to tell me you didn't want to eat them. I'm like, well, thanks.
You're vegan in the making anyway.
Yeah.
And then how are they now with your vegan lifestyle? So it
Um,
sounds like your mom is very accepting of it.
She is. They both are. I mean, even with veganfilipinofood.com, my dad's chicken adobo recipe was veganized by a chef. So that's on the website. So he's very open to it. His favorite dish is actually pinakbet. And so whenever he makes it, he'll just make it vegan for me because it's full of vegetables. So it's easy to kind of
Right.
do that, just leave everything else out. So yeah, they're very supportive. They haven't made that connection and wanting to go vegan themselves. But I love them and I support them. They'll get there eventually.
Right. And that's same with my family. They're supportive and they're sort of slowly but surely understanding why we're doing this. It's not a fad. We're not just doing this as because it's a phase. So that's really cool, especially now that times are changing and more people, it's becoming more accepted that, you know, the vegan lifestyle is more celebrated. So that's really cool. And speaking of which, we will be celebrating vegan Filipino dish by making sopas. Yay. And it's Spanish. It's just really, it's literally just the word means soup. But in the Philippines, it is usually traditionally has, it's chicken broth and has shredded chicken. And it's cooked in milk. It's like a milky, creamy soup. And so you might wonder, how are you going to make it vegan? But as you know, you and I know, almost everything can be veganizable now. And not only that, this dish is not just as tasty, but it's actually easier to make. So Erika, you were saying that you sometimes cook, but not all the time, right?
Yeah. I'm I'm kind of nervous when it comes to cooking because like my parents, they never showed us how to cook. They would just like make it. They were always like on kind of like a time, you know, time restrictions. They were always like, we have to cook, they got to go to work, that kind of thing. So they would just make food really fast without having to have like kids running around to asking them questions.
Right.
So I'm kind of like learning, which is why I'm so grateful to have you, and also veganfilipinofood.com, because it's kind of taking me back to my roots where I can learn. Because whenever I try to text my dad, I'm like, Dad, what's the recipe? What's this? And he'll be like, I don't write anything down. He's like, I'm like, yeah, I know. Nothing's written down.
It's usually, you know, approximation. And by the way, so veganfilipinofood.com is a project of Food Empowerment Project, right?
Yes.
And yeah, and you can also find some Astig Vegan recipes there and other fabulous recipes. Just heads up, and including this recipe. So, okay, so I want to show you that I have my pot. You can use your stock pot and go ahead and put it into medium heat.
Perfect.
It's gonna be a one pot soup. So I'm going to I have this oil. Go ahead and pour your oil, just enough to cover the base of the pot.
Okay.
All right.
Oh, let me grab the other one.
And then we'll wait until it heats up a little bit. So here's the thing. We're gonna fry the vegan sausages first.
Okay.
And then you fry the potatoes as well before we do anything else. Okay. And then, you know, for vegan sausages, you can use for people out there. There are different brands you can choose from now. Go ahead and fry your live sausages. Just make sure they're sliced into. So mine is Beyond Sausage.
Oh, good.
Wait, I'll just grab them. Yeah. Have you tried Filipino spaghetti?
Yeah.
Yeah, for Filipino spaghetti, they usually have hot dogs. I use light for that. And then what I do is it's not the healthiest for the spaghetti, but I usually fry the light sausages and sprinkle some vegan sugar or organic sugar and salt.
Yeah.
It kind of mimic red hot dogs that Filipinos love so much.
Right.
Okay. So I'm frying them enough to just make them a slightly brownish on both sides. You just need to slice like one or two. You don't have to slice all of them.
Okay.
And then you go ahead and fry them in your oil. And then I'm gonna go ahead and also add the potatoes. Now, like I said, the measurements don't have to be precise, and especially we don't want any food waste. So if you know, typically, I mean, roughly 2 cups of potatoes. But if you have one potato, And sometimes you end up with a large one or a small one. Just use up the whole thing, unless you have another use for that.
Right.
Yeah. And speaking of food waste, we also want to talk about not, making sure that we appreciate where our food comes from. And you have something. I mean, you told me a little bit about the work of our farmers, right? And that also includes their contribution the Filipino American farmers, right?
Yeah, so because we are a vegan food justice organization, we do advocate for the rights of farm workers. And it's great to know, as a proud Filipina, it's great to know that there's a long history of farm workers and solidarity between Mexican farm workers and Filipino farm workers here in the U.S. Because that is definitely one of the core, I don't want to say core, but Cesar Chavez was a great influence, I would say, into, just getting people interested in caring about farm workers. And so when I came into Food Empowerment Project, it was great to be able to bring kind of my culture and my history of, just Filipinos, not my history necessarily, but Filipino history with farm workers. So basically with Food Empowerment Project, it's hard for me to multitask, everyone.
You're doing
Cooking and talking, I'm like, it's not working for me.
No, it's working. You're okay.
But it just, for our work, what we do is we advocate for farm worker rights. That's on a legislative level, as well as a grassroots level. Every year we do a school supply drive for the children of farm workers as a way to give back and just thank them for all the hard work they do to help feed the world. So yeah, that's one of our core areas. This year, because of COVID, we had to change things. We had to make it a little differently. Typically what we do is we would go out to where the farm workers are and have their kids be able to pick the backpacks that they like. But this year we had to pre-package everything to reduce, contact with the backpacks so we can give them, so we're not putting the farm workers and their families at risk. And we also did a vegan food drive for farm workers this year as well, because they are some of the, oftentimes forgotten about. They're frontline workers. They're always essential workers. But during this time, they've been forgotten about.
Right. Especially now. I mean, when people think Cesar Chavez or even and Larry Leong, they think, oh, back then, there was a struggle back then. But really, we still have to be mindful about their work even until now. That the movement still has to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
And especially now with the pandemic, their livelihood, even though they're frontliners, it's still very hard to survive, to sustain that kind of work. I mean, we really have to be mindful about the contribution, because sometimes there's a lot of disconnect with where food came from.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, now that more and more people are growing growing some herbs in the garden, or some, I'm growing some tomatoes and basil, and hopefully that, because of the quarantine, people are now more doing indoor stuff. Hopefully that can make them think about where the food comes from, and the essential work of farmers. It's not easy. It's not just, it's a lot of science. It's a lot of, it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of care that you have to that goes into it. And Oh, so let me check. How are you doing now with what you have?
Yeah, looking good. It's starting to fry up a little.
So I am starting with this because I kind of want the potatoes and the sausages to be nice and in oil, you know, like just to be more comforting. But if you are watching your oil intake, or if you rather not fry your potatoes and your sausages, you also have the option of not doing this part. You can add this later, but just for me, for flavor, um, this is I rather do this first step. Yeah. So is your stove heating up, or
Yes.
you're doing okay? Cool. So you want to fry the potatoes until they are no longer until they're no longer hard and they're kind of crispy all around. And you can also pre-steam the potatoes if you'd like, for it to be more time efficient. But for me, I'm just frying them here. You can add some salt as well while you're frying this. Yeah. And then after this, so let me once again bring this to you. I have my ingredients here. Okay, so we have garlic, Chinese celery or kinchay. Regular celery also works. In fact, that's what I've been using until I realized that I have access to Chinese celery. And so the difference is that Chinese celery or kinchay, they're like stronger in flavor. So really nice. So if you have access, you can buy them at the Asian grocery store. But if not, regular celery works fine. And I have onions here. I also have cabbage and carrots, a vegan butter. For people who are trying to limit their trips and don't have access to vegan butter, you can use olive oil or you can just skip it. I also have white pepper and mushroom broth and almond milk. Unsweetened. Make sure what you use is unsweetened. Got mine from Costco. So about 2 boxes of this.
Oh, wow.
You can use other kinds of plant-based milk. If you want oat milk, that's fine too. And mushroom broth. But it depends on the brand, how much you need. But I would suggest start with 1/4 cup and gradually add from there, because it's harder to cut back than to keep adding. Okay. Of course, some salt, sea salt. And if you want it spicy, so you can use red pepper flakes at the end. And of course, we have our noodles here, this is actually a combination of shells and elbows, only because this is what I have in the pantry already. You don't have, for people at home, you don't have to cook them ahead of time. This is what Erika and I, this is what we did, because we kind of just, want to speed things up, because it can take at least 10 minutes to boil and to soften. But where you're at, it may be better to actually cook the noodles in the almond milk, so it's even more flavorful. So now we're going to add our aromatics. So that is the garlic, onions, and celery. So I'll go ahead and do that. This is about 3 cloves of garlic, minced.
Oh my, a little garlic.
And if your potatoes are really browning already, you can turn down the heat.
Okay.
And then add the onions. Add the onions here. I have the recipe of Filipino Sopas on astigvegan.com, but this is a revised version. So in case you're wondering why am I doing things differently, so I'm gonna add celery now. So this is about 2 stalks of Chinese celery, and about half of a large onion,
Mm.
or 2 medium ones.
This is my celery. I don't have the Chinese celery, but that works.
And add some salt. So go ahead, Erica, and also add some sprinkle of sea salt.
Okay.
About 3 pinches. This already looks good.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So actually, we can go ahead and turn up the heat a little bit, speed up the sauteing. During the saute part, so sauteing means that you want to release the natural juices of your ingredients. So in this case, there are onions and the garlic, celery, and then when you put salt, it speeds things up. And then you really want them nice and soft. You don't want to move on if your onions are still kind of crunchy. This is perfect, especially now fall season. You're going to want some soup.
Wow.
Or, you can also do some, this also can be great leftovers. And also the onions can be soft and also slightly translucent. Yeah. How's yours coming along?
It's getting there. A few of them are translucent.
You have your vegan butter, right? So let's add that. So the vegan butter is just add nice flavor and that nice fattiness that we want in our sopas, because let's face it, Filipino food is comfort food. Okay, so we'll add about 2 teaspoons or 1 huge heaping tablespoon.
Okay. Would that be enough?
What can I see? Oh, that's perfect.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. So that's optional for folks who are just starting to be vegan and they're sort of like, I don't know where to get that. You can just skip that. But if you are, going the extra mile, might as well. And then later, I'm excited to serve this in a bread bowl. Were you able to grab some bread bowls? I got mine at Whole Foods.
Nice. No, I got instead, I'll show you what I got. Let me grab one. Unfortunately, they were sold out.
Oh, at your bakery, or where did you go?
I have a local grocery store. It's like a very small family-owned grocery store. So they only had these little teeny rolls. So I was like, I could maybe work them, but instead, I could always dip them too. So that'll work.
Yeah, that's very creative. Okay, so cool. Okay, now we are going to add the almond milk. For that. Okay, now raise the heat to the highest setting because we just added tons of liquid there. And we are also adding the mushroom broth or the broth that you have. In the meantime, I will travel again and go closer while I'm waiting for you to make the broth, prepare the broth there. So that's the sausage. If you have access to vegan, like seitan or other people use mock chicken, you can also use shredded, or you can even just use mushrooms. You can add tofu, fried tofu. You can add, what else do you, this is a very versatile recipe. You can add other kinds of ingredients as well. This is just sort of like the traditional way. But the fun part about vegan cooking is that you get to be creative and you get to find out what else is out there aside from the conventional stuff.
Yeah, I found when I went vegan, I actually started eating a lot more food because you're trying new stuff. And there's so many different, so much produce out there that I didn't try yet. So it was interesting.
Yeah, and there are other ingredients that blew my mind that I had no idea, and I'm still discovering until now.
So with Food Empowerment Project, our founder is actually, she's a very proud Chicana. And so when she started Food Empowerment Project, she wanted to showcase the beauty of her culture, her Mexican heritage. And so that's why she started veganmexicanfood.com. And so when I came on board I think it was about 4 years ago when I started working for Food Empowerment Project, as a very proud Filipina, I was like, I want to showcase, my culture as well. And it'd be amazing, before it was pretty much you, RG, just you out there. You're the only, Filipina vegan that's, has a large following that's, that of recipes. And so it was great to collaborate on that and, create veganfilipinofood.com. And yeah, I think it's just growing. We also have a Lao board member. So we're making veganlaofood.com. That's kind of in the works right now.
Oh, I'm excited for that. So how's your soup coming along? Speaking of soup.
Yeah, it's boiling.
Oh, great. Okay, that's what we need. So let's add the carrots.
Okay.
And let's add the cabbage. Feel free to adjust the amount of mushroom or the vegetable broth that you have. So keep tasting. If you feel like it needs more.
Right.
Keep adding. This is the time to do that because we're almost done, especially now that it's boiling. I'm also going to do the same. I'm going to keep tasting and see if it needs more. So as far as the amount of carrots, it's about 1 large carrot. And then for the cabbage, it's about 1/4 of a small cabbage. The reason why we're adding the broth is we want that umami flavor. And if it needs to have, that's why I also recommend using sea salt instead of iodized salt, because sea salt has a lot of umami flavor to it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna taste mine. Yum. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Even before I'm putting more in, I think it's pretty good. It's so creamy, and there's definitely that umami.
Now we're just gonna season with, we have white pepper. You have it. So this you can add to your heart's desire, the amount of white pepper that you want. But I added about 3 big pinches. So just disclaimer for people at home. If you're going to cook your noodles in the same pot, the time to add it is when your liquid is boiling. Then you add the noodles. So let's pretend this is raw. You add the noodles and then you wait until they soften. About about 8 to 10 minutes. And then that's actually preferable.
Yeah.
To just eat in this. I asked Erika to cook it ahead of time because we don't want to bore you waiting for our noodles to soften. But at home, when you're making this, go ahead and cook it in the same pot. And then you add the veggies, you proceed with the rest. And then I'm gonna add, this is the pasta water. You don't have to, if you don't have it anymore. I'm gonna add about just a little bowl, just to add more flavor of noodles there. And I'm gonna taste again, but we're pretty much done. You made it, Erika.
Good. It looks so good. It looks very hearty.
Yeah.
It's definitely like a fall soup.
Hearty, comforting. has that umaminess. It has that, with the vegan butter, with the sausages. The one thing that will sort of cut through the creaminess is the white pepper. So feel free to keep adding. And also the Chinese celery, or just this regular celery. But if you don't have white pepper, if you cannot find it, or if you're just trying to use up what you have, black pepper will also do. So I'll do both. And then you can also add red chili flakes if you have. If you want it spicy, that is. I think the reason why Filipinos usually don't use precise measurements is because we just keep tasting. And when we keep tasting, it becomes personal, and it becomes, there's this whole debate about what's authentic and what's not. For me, it's really not authentic. It's not about being authentic. It's more about being what's genuine to you, what's personal to you. Like because even one household will have their own version of that dish versus their neighbor. So as long as you have deep respect and sensitivity to the dish and to the to what the dish is trying is what it's all about. And as long as you have that in mind and that you keep tasting, really, it becomes more personal, and you form a bond with that activity. It becomes more mindful as well. It's just good all around.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. I think that's so true.
And you feel more confident, instead of blindly following recipe, you become more confident because you'll end up liking the result because you keep tasting it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let me grab my bread bowl. I'm pretty much done. How was yours?
I think mine's done too.
Are you good with the level of flavor, the umami?
Yeah, I think it's so good. It's very delicious.
Yay! I'm so happy. Okay, this is my bread bowl.
Oh, yours looks so good.
You'll have to cut it. We're ready to present this. Turn off the heat. Once again, it reminds me of, the soup in the San Francisco treat with clam chowder, which you can also veganize. There's vegan clam chowder recipes online. But, for this occasion, I was thinking the Filipino sopas, right? Okay, I'm gonna put it, so I did this. Is this okay?
Yeah, it looks good.
Okay, and then I'm just going to grab a platter. And like I said, I don't know if I said this to you before we record, but I got this from Whole Foods. But you can check your local bakery, right? Like yours?
Yeah. Oftentimes it's hit or miss. Sometimes you'll find bread that has dairy in it and you're like, why does it have dairy in it? But a lot of times you do find bread it's vegan without even saying it's vegan. So smart to look.
Yeah, you can check the ingredients list. Even in the Philippines, I was surprised to find some vegan bread. And have you heard of pandesal?
Yeah, I love pandesal so much.
Yeah. So this is a revelation to me. When I lived in the Philippines, when I went back last year, you know what? The mom and pop pandesal bakeries, they're naturally vegan.
Oh, wow.
Because it's cheaper to not put dairy.
Right.
So you don't put dairy. They don't put butter. And it's sort of like more local that it's vegan. And you want to go like fancy, touristy, it's not vegan anymore.
Right.
I'm like, this is so cool that I'm actually more like more local that now that I'm doing something vegan, at least in terms of pandesal. So that's pretty good.
And I wonder if that also has to do with like people being lactose intolerant, or as Food Empowerment Project calls it, lactose normal, because there's nothing wrong with us not digesting the milk of another species. And so, yeah, I'm wondering, because I do know, at least I've heard a lot from our founder, who is, like I said, she's Mexican. And so she often talks about colonization as it has impacted her people here in the Americas, and how Columbus was actually the one that brought over the cows to the Americas. And that's why you see so often that people are lactose normal. So I'm wondering if it's the same, because
I wonder too, because in the Philippines, there was really no cattle industry. Yeah, it may be just be a product of colonization. I mean, there was one insight about a chocolate drink where I went to the southern part of the Philippines where, cacao was grown. And I went to the local spots, I went to and then I ordered their hot chocolate, which is the specialty of that region. And I said, please hold the milk. And they look at me so like, what? They gave me this baffled look, because traditionally, historically, their hot chocolate's vegan anyway.
Yeah.
And it's not until you go to the touristy spots that they add cream and butter and all that. So it's really interesting how some traditional dishes along the way have been colonized and actually reversed and, not became non-vegan anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. I was able to kind of carve out the little bun. So I'll put it in my bowl and kind of pour the soup over that too.
Oh God, I'm so excited. Yay. It went well after all. It was a good choice of bread.
Yes.
Okay. This is mine. I already scooped out. Oh no, there. Well, I wish we can share this together, but this is still great. We're doing this virtually. Hopefully one day we can meet in person.
Yes, for sure. My little bowl that I got, I have it within a bowl. So it's a bread bowl within a bowl. It doesn't hold that much.
Yeah, mine too, but I think it's okay.
Yeah.
So if you're serving it in a bread bowl, it may need more seasoning. We'll see. I'm so excited to dig in.
Excited.
Cheers.
Cheers.
What do you think? Erika's first Filipino sopas ever.
It's so good.
Hey.
Oh gosh. I feel like this would be so good as I think you mentioned it earlier, where it'd be good as leftovers as well. Just there's so many flavors to it.
Yeah.
I love my carbs as well. So it's like bread with the noodles and potatoes. It's perfect.
It's so rare that, believe it or not, we have certain Filipino dishes that do not require rice, but it still has carbs.
Yeah. Mandatory.
Oh yeah. And the overtime, and if you notice the ingredients, you only need a little bit of this, just 1 carrot, 2 stalks of celery, but it produces a huge pot. So it's really.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised. When you were telling me the ingredients, I was like, that doesn't seem like that much. But now it's a huge stock pot of soup that I have. And I'm like, leftovers for a while.
Yeah. So thank you. I think, I'm going to finish mine soon, and I'll share. Speaking of sharing with families, I'll also share with my family members here. So thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed it.
I did. Yeah, it was great. Thank you for moving us along.
If people want to connect online, so you are on social media. Food Empowerment Project is on social media. You guys have YouTube as well?
Yeah, YouTube, Food Empowerment Project. Twitter is Food is Power, just because Food Empowerment Project is very long. But you'll find us on, it's Food Empowerment Project. You'll find us on Instagram and Facebook as well.
Yeah, so if you have questions, if you want to get involved, if you want to volunteer, or if, if you just want to say hello, they're there. And likewise with Astig Vegan, if you have any questions about the recipe, if some steps are not clear or for some reason, you can always reach out. I always love hearing from you guys. So, it's really cool to, like you said, when you hear from a fellow, from somebody who's just interested, whether you're vegan or not, Filipino or not, it's really cool to hear that, you found it enjoyable and you found it useful and meaningful. So it's astigvegan.com, but also on social media, Facebook and Instagram, Astig Vegan. Well, let's conclude this. Thank you so much once again. More power to you guys. It's such an honor that we get to collaborate in this way. And this is my first cook along. Hopefully, we did well. And although this is not live, I feel like there's that really nice energy that we have during this this cook along, and more of you and more empowerment project.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for having me here, Archie, and just sharing your knowledge and for sharing just your food. I mean, I think it's so amazing what you're doing. And I know you're connecting a lot more people, vegan or not vegan, Filipino or not Filipino. You're just connecting so many people and just bringing them into the world of, eating friendlier to animals and to the planet. So it's great. So thank you. And hope you have a great night. And I'm going to enjoy this delicious bowl. Warm goodiness. I love it.
Bowl, yay. You did it. Take care.
You too. Bye.